What's up, boys? Happy to see y'all for another edition of the Blind Pig, courtesy of bgobsession.com. Find us on all major streaming platforms for podcasts, as well as on YouTube if you decide that you want to embrace our smiling faces. Please give us a like, share, follow, and of course, jump on bgobsession.com, join the message board, mix it up, have some fun. So, we are rolling out our final breakdown of position groups. We're gonna have a pretty lengthy QB podcast coming up at the end of this week, but the last actual position group that we wanted to really dig into specific players about was cornerbacks. I think we're all in agreement that we're not going to go into the season with our current cornerback group, because right now we have Forbes and St. Juice listed as our starters, and then I think our slot would probably be. Oh man, it's hard to even say. Um, what's his Quan Martin maybe? But anyways, um, I'll jump off on the breakdown real quick. I'll kick it off. My first guy, is a guy by the name of Cam Hart. All right, Cam Hart went to University of Notre Dame. 6'3", 202 at the combine. I think he can bulk up a little bit, but I don't know that he really needs to because he is physical. In fact, that's one of the things he's known for is his ability to take on press and man coverage. He is not shy about getting dirty. Right now, he's showing a third round draft projection. At least the last time I checked, I think it's elevated a little bit. He's going as into the second half of the second round. I would love to get him in the third round if he falls to that first pick in the third round, or even in the second half of the third round. I think it would be a home run. As a junior, he played in 13 games with 739 snaps. He had 2 interceptions, 5 pass breakups, with a quarterback rating of 61.1 when targeted. As a senior, in 11 games, 568 snaps. He took a little bit of a step back with only 2 pass breakups, no picks, and an 89.2% quarterback rating. But then as a fifth-year senior, in 12 games, 572 snaps, 2 pass breakups, no picks. Quarterback rating thrown against was 67.1. He actually made the Bruce Feldman freak list. So he was viewed as kind of a freak guy, a guy that's not just going to be your run of the mill guy. He's big, he's fast, he's strong. He ran a 4.540 at the combine. He has good instincts when watching his film, really good instincts. He actually just needs to trust it more. You'll see him break the ball and then hesitate, and it ends up giving up something. The majority of the time when he breaks, he's right, but he's afraid. And that's why he doesn't get beat on a lot of double moves. It's actually the opposite, where he'll come to break down and then he'll slow down and he'll give up a pass underneath, or vice versa. He'll go to break to the outside and then he'll hesitate and then he'll give it up over the top. He looks like a linebacker when he plays, or at least a big safety. If you watch him play, he is thick, big shoulder pads. He's ready to come downhill. And he's not afraid to play the run. There's been a handful of guys that say he's going to be really good against the run early on. He's just got to work a little bit on his pass defending. He actually played wide receiver in high school, which some scouts have said gives him an advantage because he really truly understands how to not only play the ball, but he can kind of read the wide receivers off the line of scrimmage and play them a little better than a lot of other guys do. And he's viewed as having a high football IQ with a coach on the field mentality. So that's my guy, Cam Hart. I would love to see him in the third round. I could see us even trading him back up into the second round and grab him a little early. Next up is another guy I fell in love with, John, your boy, Max Melton.
Yeah, I gotta confess, I got a little man crush on Max Melton.
Look at that smile.
Yeah, he's a really talented guy. I think and I know I probably overused the hidden gem term, but I think he could be, as far as defensive backs go, he could be one of the hidden gems of the draft, like even possibly at like a future Pro Bowler if he continues to develop. Max Melton played all 4 years at Rutgers, and he played all 4 years. And he's kind of a legacy player. His comes from an athletic family. Both of Max's parents were Rutgers athletes. His dad was a football player. His mom played on the Rutgers basketball team. And his brother Bo is currently a wide receiver for the Packers. So he's got definitely a tradition of academic excellence in his family. As far as his measurables, he's 5'11", 187 pounds, which some people would say, well, that's a little undersized for kind of prototypical cornerback, but he's got a 77-inch wingspan. His vertical jump at the combine was 40.5 inches, which is in the 94th percentile. And the guy ran a 4.3940. So he is blazing fast. And that makes a huge difference in terms of what his ceiling might be. He also, one of the big selling points for Max Melton is he can play anything you need him to play. He can play outside, he can play slot, he can play man, he can play zone, he can press. He's got really good instincts, is able to anticipate routes. He's able to watch the quarterback's eyes and anticipate. Very good reaction times. He loves to hit. He's not a big guy, obviously, but he is a run stuffer, and he does it with a lot of enthusiasm. We talked about that earlier in some of the other positional breakdowns, where Witt and Quinn like those guys that can put a pop on somebody and make an impression. He's able to shed blockers when he's being used to rush. He's able to get past that first blocker and get into the backfield. He's pretty disruptive at Rutgers. Just some stats in 2023, played 12 games, had 32 tackles, 4 tackles for a loss, a sack, 3 interceptions, 6 passes defended, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. So he created all kinds of havoc in his senior year. His surrendered quarterback rating when targeted was 65.7. So he's making quarterbacks look inept pretty consistently. And he played a lot of ball at Rutgers, 40 career starts, over 2,000 college snaps. Some people are saying he projects as a nickel, but I think that's insane. When you can run a 4.39, you're not going to put that. I don't think you're going to put that guy in as a nickel back. You're going to want him on the outside because he can basically take away that kind of speed. You're going to be able to hang with any deep threat in the NFL at that with that kind of speed. So and that's not speed. That's a pretty rare quality. So as far as negatives, I think he can be a little sloppy at times. So he would benefit from being coached up a little bit. Gets a little handsy at times. I've read sometimes will bite on double moves. So he's just maybe a little bit over aggressive at times, and might need some of that coached out of him. But as far as being like a quick twitch athlete, that guy that can just swivel his hips and be gone and take off with the fastest wide receivers out there, he is that guy. Super confident, very high motor. I mean, you listen to the coaches talk about him, they're like, this kid is like just one of the most high motor players that they've coached. And he's also got really good ball skills, which I think we've heard Quinn and Witt talk about that, how they want players that can take the ball away. And I think he definitely has that ability. So anyway, he's still got a high ceiling, even though he's already an excellent cornerback because of some of those technique issues that I talked about. As far as where he'll go, he's definitely going to be, I think he's definitely a day 2 guy. I don't know whether someone's going to think enough of him to snatch him in the second round, or whether he could possibly drop to the third. But I think when he ran that 4.39 recently, I think you got to think someone's going to be looking at him as a possible second round selection. So anyway, I love Max Melton.
Next guy up is TJ Tampa, by way of Bob.
Yeah, Iowa State. I don't know. I had a thing for Iowa guys this year. I almost talked about Cooper DeJean in the slot. I just don't think he's going to survive long enough for us to get him. Or if he does, he ends up playing safety. And we were really talking about cornerback tonight. Although, go check him out, because if he makes it to one of those first two picks in the second round, it's going to be hard to pass up. But let's talk about Mr. Tampa, because I think he's a much more realistic option for us. 6'1", 190, give or take, and ran a 4.45 40. So the guy's got, all the normal measurables that you're looking for in a modern prototypical cornerback. I've seen projections where they talk about him being an outside zone cornerback, but all of those same, in the reviews of all those same projections, they say that he's got the physical tools and the mental tools to play in either system, be it press man or zone. I've seen him line up in the slot. I've seen him line up over the tight end, cover the tight end, blitz, and his run defense is just absolutely amazing. The guy is perfectly willing to stick a nose in there and get serious about it. He gets a hand on the football a lot. And with Quinn and Witt both talking about an emphasis on turnovers, he's not exactly an interception machine, but his pass defense skills are amazing, which leaves the ball up for grabs in a lot of cases. And it may not be him, but if you've got the right guys around the ball, there's no telling who comes down with it, right? He's got tremendous short burst acceleration. So even when he gets beat on a move, he's got the speed to quite often catch back up. Again, another one of those guys, Derek, you called him out with heart. This is another one of those guys that was a two-way player in high school. So he's lauded for his football IQ and his ability to quickly diagnose what's happening in a play and make the correct adjustments for whatever's going on around him. He just reads things incredibly quickly. Granted, again, as we say every week, we're staring at YouTube highlights, right? Nobody puts the bad stuff on the highlight reel. But this guy's been playing for 4 years at Iowa State. He's got 41 games under his belt, almost 1,800 snaps. To throw out some of those numbers that you guys were kicking around, as a junior, he gave up a quarterback rating when targeted of 70.7. As a senior, he dropped that quarterback rating when targeted down to 54.8.
Wow.
So the kid's improving, right? Which is always a positive sign. As a senior, 6 pass breakups, 2 interceptions. As a junior, 8 pass breakups, 1 interception. So he's trending in the right direction. I've seen him drafted anywhere from early second to late second, and I think that's probably where he ends up going in a very strong cornerback class. I mean, they're talking about this guy anywhere from early second to late second, and he's the 10th rated cornerback in the draft. So that tells you how strong it is. Comparables, a lot of people are comparing him to Devin Witherspoon out of Iowa last year. So that's TJ Tampa, and I think we could do a lot worse.
Next guy is an honorary nomination by our brother Paul, Elijah Jones.
So I'm going to be reporting on Elijah Jones for Paul, aka Canadian Hog on BG Obsession. But Elijah Jones has played his ball at Boston College. He's 6'1" tall, 185 pounds. So kind of a leaner frame than some of the other guys we've talked about. He's 24 years old, ran a 4.44 40 at the combine, had 7 career interceptions at Boston College, but all of those interceptions came in his last 2 seasons. He was a 6-year senior at Boston College, was an all ACC first team player. As far as his strengths go, he's a very good athlete. Paul describes him as explosive. If we're looking for somebody that can contest catches, Elijah Jones is probably a guy to look hard at. He had a 42.5-inch vertical jump at the NFL Combine, which was tied for first among all defensive backs. He's got very good zone coverage skills, can read quarterbacks well, disrupt passing lanes, good instincts. One of the things he's known for is undercutting throws really well. Has really good smarts on the field. He can match up against taller receivers, obviously due to that height, that lanky build he's got. But more importantly, that leaping ability we talked about with that vertical leap is going to allow him, especially in places like the red zone, to really be a factor. He has played a lot of, obviously 6 seasons, a lot of college football, 57 total college career games. So he's been exposed to a lot, and he's going to be probably more ready to play a plug and play type cornerback than some of the guys like Emmanuel Forbes that we saw last year with the Commanders. And may be able to skip some of those early struggles that we tend to see based on all that experience that he's got. One of the things Paul wanted to talk about was that the kid is always around the ball, and there's players like that just seem to always be in a position to make a play. So he's involved in a lot of pass breakups. In his final season at Boston College, he had 15 pass breakups and 11 the season prior to that. So he was kind of a force to be reckoned with in terms of pass breakups. And again, he just seems to always be around the ball. He's a very good tackler, contributes well in stopping the run, and he's not afraid like Max Melton, who I referred to earlier. He seems to like to lay the wood on opposing players and get his nose dirty. So he's solid against the run. And then finally, Paul's wrap up was that he has a nice blend of athleticism, length, tackling ability, IQ, and really good ball skills. And Paul feels like he could become a well-rounded defensive back. Maybe not a standout, but someone that you can count on and lean on, a really solid depth player. And especially in zone situations, because it really plays to his physical talents, and being a smart, reactive player that doesn't make a lot of mistakes. So that's Elijah Jones from Boston College.
Very cool.
Paul felt like he would be around, probably drafted somewhere in the 4th round, is that where he has him projected.
All righty. Next up is one of my guys, MJ Devonshire. This guy is a day 3 guy. I see him mocked around the 6th round, with a 6th round grade. But what jumps off the map or off the page at me to steal something out of Paul's page or playbook is when you get a guy on day 3, you're looking at his contributions day 1, and a lot of that is a lot of special teams. Just as a corner, real quick, I'll run down a couple things. He is willing to play in run support, coming downhill quickly. He does trust his eyes. He's very good in awareness, very good reaction skills, and he quickly breaks on the ball. He has quick feet. He can turn his hips. He can play downfield. He's scoped as an outside zone corner, but there are a couple, not questions, but one of the things about him is he's not a violent tackler. So you do wonder if he's going to fit the scheme. But as a player, he's 5'11", 186. He's a little undersized. He ran a 4.45 40, but really jumped off the page at me. Whoops. Sorry. Started at Kentucky. In Kentucky, he played in 3 games as a freshman, 9 games as a sophomore. He only played in 76 snaps. He was not a contributor. He then transferred to Pitt. In 12 games at Pitt, he had 412 snaps, gave up a QB rating of 90.7. In 2022, as a senior, that went to 12 games, 619 snaps with a QBR of 82.6. That also includes 32 total tackles, 10 pass breakups, and 4 interceptions. Where he really got me was as a punt returner. In his career at Pitt, he had 45 returns for 335 yards, which is a 7.4 yard average, and a touchdown. Over that time, he led the ACC in punt returns. He actually has come out and said, "I enjoy punt returning." When he was interviewed, he said, "What can you bring to the table?" He said, "I'm going to be a shutdown corner, but, quote, I'm going to be an explosive punt returner." So he takes pride in it. He's got a 6'6" wingspan, which is asinine for a guy who's 5'11". In 2022, he led the ACC in punt returning yards, average per return at 9.7. The guy takes complete pride in his ability to return the punts. If you watch how he plays, he is aggressive. It's kind of crazy that he's not aggressive tackler because when he runs the ball as a punt returner, he does not shy away from contact. He is going for every yard he can possibly get. So I don't look at him as a guy that's going to come in the 6th round or 7th round and be a day one starter. But when we're filling out the back half of the roster and we can find some special teamers, some guys that can contribute, especially we talked about this a little bit with the wide receivers and I believe he could find his way onto the active roster very quickly with the new kick return rules and cement his way as a special teamer and make the final 53 and be a major contributor.
Derek, did you say what his 40 time was?
4.45.
Okay, whoa. Okay.
Which is not elite speed, but a 4.45 is still pretty damn good.
Right.
You know what I mean? So next up is gonna be is it Chow?
Chow, baby.
Chow Smith Wade.
Yeah. So Chow Smith Wade, he played at Washington State. He was there 4 years, but really he didn't see the field barely at all the first 2 seasons. So I'm kind of thinking of him more as like a 2-year starter because that's the experience that he has. He's a little on the small side. He's 5'10", 184 pounds, has a 73-inch wingspan. Pretty quick. He ran a 4.54 40. But not doesn't have the vertical leap of a guy like Melton that I talked about earlier. His vertical at the combine was 34.5 inches. So he's not going to, that's probably going to, between his height and his leaping ability or lack thereof, he's probably not going to be playing on the outside or, you don't want him down in the end zone on red zone plays more than likely. So I kind of project him as a nickel at the NFL level. But he is very athletic. He's got super quick feet, quick twitch, able to move side to side very quickly. Just a really good athlete. In 2023, he played in 7 games, had 30 total tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, 6 passes defended. But again, he's still pretty raw with only 20 career starts. He's probably the biggest limiting factor on Chow Smith Wade is he's very athletic, but he just doesn't have great ball skills like a guy like Melton does. So that's probably the area where he needs to improve the most. He's very disruptive, but he seldom ends up coming down with the ball when he is disrupting things. One of the reasons I decided to talk about Smith Wade was that he totally rocked the Senior Bowl. He had like a standout performance at the Senior Bowl, and he got a lot of attention as a result. He's very versatile, which I think any corner that we draft is going to have to play multiple styles. He can play man, he can play zone. He's very good at press coverage, especially good in zone. And he's another guy that is pretty good at reading the quarterback's eyes and being able to anticipate routes as they're happening. He's not a big guy, but he's a good tackler. He's just, again, whether or not he'll be able to sustain that with larger players at the NFL level, I guess that's to be determined. He is confident and he'll gamble at times, which sometimes that can be a good thing. And sometimes it can be a bad thing. That's the nature of gambling, right? He also has a tendency to grab it when he gets beat. So those are just technique things that he's going to need to work on. But he's very scrappy. He's very game, smart kid. And like I said, I think he probably could be a solid depth guy at nickel if we were looking for someone like that. And I think he's projected as a 3rd rounder. I think he could fall because he doesn't have the prototypical size. And that tends to the guys that are not strong leapers and do not have prototypical size, they tend to fall in the NFL draft. So I think you might be able to grab him in the 4th round if we were looking for cornerback help. That's what I got.
Very cool. Next guy is a guy at Auburn, Nehemiah Pritchett.
Yeah, so one of the things that caught my attention about Mr. Pritchett is that he's a fifth-year senior, so tremendously experienced. He's got 50 college games, 2,448 total snaps at Auburn. So, not only is he highly experienced in terms of college and I'm assuming fairly mature as a fifth-year senior, but all of that game time was in the SEC, which is, like NFL Division II football, right? So the guy's not exactly playing slouches every week. He is 6 feet 190 and ran a 4.36 40. So one of the faster guys at the combine this year. Yeah, that puts him in the top nine or in the 92nd percentile. One of the things that really caught my eye though was his 10-yard was 1.49. So the dude is getting off the start in a big, big hurry and covering a tremendous amount of ground very, very quickly there. Obviously his speed is his primary asset. He's not a great leaper, like Chow with John a second ago. Not a great leaper in any way, shape, or form. Fairly low in terms of that at the combine, which is probably part of the reason that he's further down the list here. He's also not a big turnover guy. Plenty of pass breakups, but not a lot of takeaways over his 5 years at Auburn. He did manage to continuously, well, all right. I say continuously improve his quarterback rating when targeted, except for the fact that in 2020, he posted a ridiculous quarterback rating when targeted of 48.6. But that was a COVID year, and I'm just not sure what he was playing against as far as talent was concerned and what the game situations were. That was as a sophomore. So, maybe it was just the fact that there wasn't a lot of tape on this kid. The next year it jumped up to 84.3, but then he dropped it back down to 72.9. And then as a senior, he dropped it down to 54.8. So continuously improved from, each year over the last three. I see a tremendous amount of potential with regard to the speed here. He's projected in the 5th round, easily worth that more than likely, and may drop further. I mean, what John was talking about is he's missing a couple of the measurables that maybe you're looking for a guy. The other thing is there are a lot of really good cornerbacks in this draft. And so I can see some of the guys at the bottom end of the cornerback class sliding down the draft board a little bit as teams pick up higher rated talent that in the earlier rounds. And so maybe as many aren't taken late. But with that kind of speed could potentially be a great special teamer. See him playing on the outside of punt returns and stuff. Just a thought. Nehemiah Pritchett.
Like it. Next up, last but not least, by way of brother Paul, Johnny Dixon at Penn State.
Yeah, so Paul really likes Johnny Dixon. Johnny Dixon is 5'11", 188 pounds. Ran a 4.540 at the combine. He's got some good experience, played 52 total college games, over 1,700 snaps in his time at Penn State. He actually started his first 2 seasons at South Carolina and then played three seasons for Penn State. So he's a 5th-year senior this last year. In his senior year, he had 9 quarterback pressures and 5 sacks, which was tops for all FBS cornerbacks. As a senior at Penn State, he gave up a career best 43.9 quarterback rating when targeted. That's insane. 43.9 quarterback rating when targeted. I suggest you don't target him.
Really?
That would be my tip to the opposing quarterbacks. But he followed that up the next season, only surrendering a quarterback rating of 77.9, which is still outstanding. He's thought of as being more of a press outside cover cornerback. As far as his strengths go, he's got quick feet. He's a fluid mover. Allows him to play inside, cover slot receivers, and hang with them. He's He's got a long frame and good top end speed. So he's going to have no problem chasing downfield, be able to cover a lot of ground on the football field when defending. Not afraid, not shy to mix it up. He is not afraid to initiate contact with the wide receiver at the line of scrimmage and doesn't back down. He's pretty physical and has a little bit of an edge to him, which Paul likes a lot. He is a talented blitzer. In his final season at Penn State, he had 5 sacks, 9 quarterback pressures, those are pretty high numbers for a cornerback. He's a great extra body as a blitzer and is able to disguise what he's doing pre-snap very well. One evaluator described him as arriving at the quarterback with violent intentions in blitz situations, and that sounds like somebody that Joe Witt Jr. Would really like to have. He's got a lot, again, the college experience, 52 games. He's going to come in a little bit more ready to jump in there and play a contributing role versus what we commonly see where cornerbacks tend to struggle early. As far as concerns, Paul said that he does, like some of the other guys we talked about, tends to grab more than he should, a little bit prone to penalties. And his hands get him in trouble sometimes. But that's kind of a common thing for younger cornerbacks. They've got to learn, especially at the NFL level, what they can get away with. Also tackling in space. He tends to go at the ankles, and you know how that usually ends up working out in the NFL. You're on the ground and there's a dust cloud, and the guy that you were trying to ankle tackle is 20 yards down the field. So that's something that they'll have to work on to fix if we draft him. And then Paul's final thoughts. The prospect caught his eye because of how you can use him. He can be a press corner on the outside, has the ability to cover in the slot, and can also be used as an extra blitzer. He has a bit of the grit and snot to his game. That phrase of the night, grit and snot.
That's what's up.
Which I think might fit the identity of this defense. So he's got a little bit of a nasty streak to him. Dan Quinn's defense have always left opponents guessing, and Dixon is kind of that wild card type player that can be an extra chess piece, and especially in terms of blitzing. So anyway, that is Johnny Dixon from Penn State.
Very cool, boys. We have found our way to the end of our positional breakdown as we approach the draft. Recording this, we're actually barely over 2 weeks away.
Yeah, it's coming fast and furious.
Can't go fast enough.
So if I was going to make a bold prediction, this is my bold prediction about the draft. I wonder, but just because of conventional wisdom, because you guys tell me with that second pick, what's conventional wisdom? Absolutely 100% certain we're going to do.
There isn't any.
Well, I think everyone.
Quarterback.
No, not the number 2 pick, the second pick, our second pick.
Number 36.
Yes.
And I fall squarely into the conventional wisdom, John. I think it's an offensive tackle.
So I'm just saying, and I know that Brother Derek said this on another pod recently. I will not be at all surprised if we totally, I don't know, I think it'll throw all the fan base into a tizzy immediately, but I would not be shocked if we see the team, if there's a really talented cornerback that we didn't expect to be there at 36, if we don't go cornerback, wide receiver,
linebacker.
I won't be at all surprised if they defy all logic in our minds and take a player because they can't believe he's there and not the offensive tackle that we all believe they're going to take.
Of all the trade possibilities in this draft, I think number 36 is quite possibly the most obvious pick that we would trade away. And we could package that with potentially a 4th rounder to move up into the bottom of the 1st round to take an offensive tackle if somebody falls, that you really, really feel good about, or a wide receiver that you desperately want.
I think a lot of times what happens is in these drafts where you have a couple of position groups that are just stocked, is that you see a run. You'll see like a run on wide receivers, or you'll see a run on linebackers or whatever it is, and then
Yeah.
that which results in players dropping that you never ever thought would be there. Like I think
Needed other positions.
like a Montez Sweat situation where you're like, that guy fell all the way to that spot. We're going to do whatever it takes to go grab him. So anyway, I'm just throwing that out there.
I can see it. That's why the argument I've been making on every level of this draft is if there's a guy there that is better than you expected to be there, if his draft grade is 10 to 12 positions better than what you're picking, I don't want to pass him just to take a need.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I want premium talent on this roster.
Well,
And that's got to be the goal.
We've talked about it in previous pods, Derek, and my guess is we'll talk about it next week in the BGO mock draft pod when we do it. But we've signed some talent in free agency, some amazing talent in free agency, frankly, when you really look at some things, but we haven't signed anybody long term. There are no contracts in free agency that we couldn't dump next year without really hurting ourselves in any way, shape, or form. And some of the better talent we've signed, we only signed on 1-year deals or 2-year deals. So I don't think you can say this team has no positional needs. There are needs at every single position on this team right now, which puts us in the position of being able to take the absolute best player on the board at any given point in time in the draft, especially if we think maybe they've fallen past the point that they should have been drafted. So you may be right.
They've done they've done like a masterful job in free agency, I think, because of exactly what you just said. It's like we're going to have a lot more freedom to do whatever they envision doing in the moment, and not feel like and that was the thing about the Rivera drafts. You always felt like, I don't know, you just felt like they were like, well, here we are. Who do you think is the best guy to draft? And
I always felt like with Ron Rivera, he'd made his mind up before the first pick had even been taken. That we're taking this guy no matter what happens. And that was frustrating.
The clip of him talking about Emmanuel Forbes and how they had to get him ahead of the draft, that enraged me. Not to say that Emmanuel Forbes won't turn out to be a good NFL player. I don't think we know, but it just, the idea that you've set your mind on a player and the draft hasn't even started yet, that just made me queasy.
Yeah, no, you're not, and I have to agree with you. I mean, all right, I admit, in the moment when I was a little irritated about the whole Forbes thing, them releasing that video and Rivera's certainty made me feel a little better in the moment. But weeks later, thinking, we're not even talking about into training camp yet. I mean, we hadn't even seen the kid on the field yet. I started thinking about it, and the further removed from the draft we got, the more angry I got, because you've shut down any possibility for something really, really cool falling in your lap. And I'm not saying, something else was there. Who knows? Although Christian Gonzalez had a pretty damn good season in New England, and he was there when we picked. There's several other guys.
We've talked it on the board. That's how you end up with Jamin Davis instead of Christian Darrisaw.
Right.
But I that's just how that works. You know what I mean? So that was a situation where we needed a linebacker, and the best left tackle in the game, or a top 3 left tackle in the game, is there available for you. But because you prioritize this and you've just completely put blinders on, now you've seemingly passed on something that now 2 years later we're talking about as the biggest need on the team.
Yep.
Yeah. I have not been this excited about a draft in my lifetime. That's a long time. I can't remember being this excited about a draft ever. So it's going to be
I was fairly excited about 2012. I was pretty excited about RG3. I wasn't excited about the draft picks we gave up to move up, but the fact that we felt so strongly, and I think
it was exciting, but you just nailed it, which is knowing what we gave up to get
Yeah.
there.
Well, and I think most of us wondered, even as we looked at it and went, Mike Shanahan's strong enough to resist Dan Snyder. I still
Yeah.
think most of us in the back of our minds were going, did Snyder fucking mandate this? Are we getting screwed over? And sure enough, we
Well,
all
and
know how
that's-
that played out.
I think that's what it all boils down to, is that we're going to go into this draft and we're going to look at it and we're going to say a football person made that decision. And even if it blows up in our face, it was a football person making the decision. The person making the decision was the person that should be making the decision. You know, I don't think anybody would even let it even entertain their mind that Josh Harris makes the call on any level of this draft.
And something I thought about a few days ago, I don't remember ever being really frustrated with Bobby Beathard's drafts. Because at the end of the day, I always felt like there was a plan that Beathard and Gibbs were going to figure a way out, figure out how to use these guys. That when they drafted them, we had a goal in mind, and I couldn't see it, but that didn't matter because it wasn't my job to see it. And for the first time in a long time, I kind of feel that way this year, that I may not in the moment agree with what Peters and Quinn do, but I firmly believe that there is a plan and that those two guys know how to get there. And it doesn't matter whether I appreciate it in the moment or not.
And Bob, it's not just the plan, man. And Mark has alluded to this like 150 times. It's the fact that we've already started talking about what our identity is going to be and we don't know on offense, right? That's one thing we don't know. We may have some clues about what we think the offense might want to be about and what traits they're looking for. But how long has it been since I think you could literally argue like all the way back to the Gibbs year, the first Gibbs year. How long has it been since we even knew what the hell the team was trying to build? Like what traits did they value? What kind of players? And we heard that in the opening press conferences, man. We heard about, like whether it's forcing turnovers or, being violently aggressive, those kinds of things. So I just think that's the most exciting thing, because if you don't have that, it's really hard to build, to do any kind of effective team building if you don't really know what it is that you're trying to build from the outside.
Right.
There's a level, there's a level of rigidity that you have to share a level of liquidity. I hate to use it that you have to tailor your team to your talent, but at the same time, you have to have a plan in place. Like you can't just go into it and say, well, we're going to, whatever we'll see how the things work out for us. You have to have a plan, but then if there's something that an opportunity arises, you have to be smart enough to understand how you can utilize that to your advantage.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, well, no, that's not part of our plan. We're not going to touch that.
So if you checked out tonight's cornerback, our last position group overview, keep your eyes peeled, because we have our most animated, exciting discussion coming up later this week. On Friday, we'll put out our quarterback debate, our big what to do at number 2.
Yep. And then next week, we'll be rolling out our BGO mock draft that we do every year, where we're each assigned a pick. If
with
you're
our buddies
on the
from the
board,
Burgundy and Gold Knuckleheads helping us out.
Yep. And if you're on the board, I've actually posted a vote today. We are going to leave the second pick in the draft up to a vote. That way nobody gets assigned to it. So however the vote goes on the board, that's going to be the pick. And then we'll be each assigned a pick after that, so that we can run a draft simulator, actually pick based on what's actually on the board. And it'll be like we're running an actual live draft. So if you've hung around this long, please like and share, jump on YouTube, give us a subscribe. And it's been a pleasure. And boys, it's been a hell of a draft breakdown. We're finally getting down to the last couple weeks here where these questions are going to get answered. So it's been fun, man.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
All right, fellas.
All right.